good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all doing great. Okay, so this is the biology session. With me here, I'm with my able students. Say hi.
Hi.
Your name?
Alice.
Your name?
Hi, I'm Manga Sharon.
Okay. Okay, so we'll look at the circulatory system. So the circulatory system is the system that deals with the blood vessels, the red blood, the blood vessels, and the heart itself. So what it does is that this system, it consists of the blood circulatory system that is called, which is called the cardiovascular system. The word cardio means the heart. Then vascular simply means just the blood vessels. Then it is entirely connected with the lymphatic system, because what this system does, that's what even the lymphatic system does. Okay, so now to start with, when you look at this picture that we have here, this is the principle of veins and arteries that are found in our bodies. So these are the veins and arteries that are found in our bodies. For example, do you know that they are the veins that takes deoxygenated blood to the heart? We have what we call the superior vena cava. Remember the superior vena cava?
Yes.
Remember it, right?
Yes.
Then we have the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. It takes blood to the vena cava, which takes the deoxygenated blood to the right atrium. Then from the right atrium, the blood goes to the left atrium. From the left atrium, from the right atrium, then it goes to the right ventricle. So from the right ventricle, now that blood will go to the pulmonary for circulation of blood, okay, for purification. So now let's look at what this major organ is. What is the heart? So the heart is just a muscular organ that pumps blood around the body through the blood vessels. Okay. So the heart, it has got muscles that are found. These muscles that are found in the heart, we call them the cardiac muscles. What is the name given to the muscles that are found in the heart?
The cardiac muscles.
Now, okay, so it's the cardiac muscles. What is their function?
Is to pump blood around the body.
So they pump blood as they contract and relax. So the contraction of the atrium, we call it atriosystole.
Yes.
And the relaxation of the atrium, we call it atriodiastole. Okay. All right. So the heart is divided into the left and the right side, and the middle wall is called the septum. So what separates these left and the right is the septum. So that separation is done by the septum, which has the side in the upper chambers known as the atrium. The plural for atrium, we call it atrio. So, and then the lower chamber, it is known as what? Ventricle. So the lower chamber of the heart, we call it, it is known as what? The ventricle. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. So we've got the pulmonary artery there. We've got the pulmonary semilunar valves. Those are the valves there, the vena cava, the right atrium. Then the valves that are found to the right atrium is the tricuspid valve. These are the valves that opens and close to prevent the backflow of what? Of blood. Okay, then we have the right ventricle, and then this is the septum that I was talking about. The septum is the one that demarcates the left from the right. Okay, but in some condition you realize that this septum it leaks, where you find to say that blood will start mixing up. And those are situations that you see that someone will develop what we call cardiac arrhythmias, or maybe they can even have what? Cardiac arrest, because blood is mixing up. Okay. Now, let's look at the function of the heart. Can someone try to tell me what's the function of the heart?
To pump blood around the body.
Okay, yes. The function of the heart?
Is to pump blood around the body.
Okay, so the function of the heart, so to say, is just to pump blood. Okay, so the walls of the heart is made up of the two types of muscle called the cardiac muscles. which has the following characteristics. They've got these ones. They have what we call the myogenic, which stimulates the contraction and conducting electrical impulses for pumping up of what? Of blood. And this is called the pacemaker, the peacemaker of the heart, which is the sinoatrial node, which is the SA node, the one that is found in the right atrium. This is the zesk of the heart, the one that powers the heart with pumping as well as what? Conductivity. Then it also the other function of the heart is that it does not develop what? Fatigue. So what it means is that the heart does not develop fatigue even if when it works for a longer period of time. And the way the heart does is that how does it manage and maintain not to develop fatigue? It's because it is controlled by what we call the involuntary control. It's under involuntary control. What does that mean? This means that the heart can operate with or without your awareness. You can't be aware, and that's the reason why I find to say that whether you're sleeping or you're awake, your heart will still be pumping. Unless maybe when someone is dead, that's when the heart stops pumping. Aye? Yes. Okay. So now, let's look at this cycle. Remember what I said, that systole simply means what? The contraction of the heart, the cardiac muscle, we call it what? Systole. Yes. And the relaxation of the cardiac muscle, we call it what? Diastole. So they make these cardiac cycle. What are these cardiac cycles? The cardiac cycle, it can either be atriosystole, which is the contraction of the walls of the what? The atria. Mm-hmm. Then we have what we call the pause. What is the pause? So the pause, this is when this contracts, the other one does what? Relaxes. What do we call that kind of muscle? When a muscle, the other muscle is contracting, the other muscle is the other muscle is relaxing. What do we call that? What do we call that? Antagonistic. Okay. So let's look at these events that happens to the heart. We've got the events, atriosystole. So when there is the atrial contract, what happened to the atrium? The atrium contracts. What happened to the ventricle? They relax. What happened to the tricuspid and the bicuspid valve? They open. What happened to the semilunar valve? They close. What happened to the blood flow? Blood will flow from the atrium to the ventricle. Then again, in the ventricular, if there is ventricular systole, ventricular systole simply means that it's the ventricles that are contracting. So under ventricular systole, we have what happened to the atrial? Relax. What happened to the ventricle? Contract. What happened to the tricuspid and the bicuspid? They close. What happened to the semilunar valve? They open. What happened to the flow of blood? Blood flows from the ventricle to the arteries, right? Yes. What happened when we have diastole? Diastole event in the atrium, in the atrium. The atria does what? Relax. The ventricle does what? Also relax. And the bicuspid as well as the tricuspid opens up, and the semilunar valve, what do they do? They closes. And then what happened to the flow of blood? Blood flows. It flows from the vein into the what? The atria. The aorta. Yeah, it has to be the aorta. So it does to flow from the vein into the aorta. Okay. Now let's look at this. The double circulation of what? Of the heart. We usually call it the dual what? Circulation. So this dual circulation, I'll give you this example here for me to explain it very well. Okay. So this example explains the dual circulation, this one here. So what usually happens is that deoxygenated blood, let's start with this one here. Let's start with the pulmonary circulation. So the pulmonary circulation, this is the circulation that consists of dirty blood, right? Yes. So this one, it consists of the dirty blood. So how is the flow of the same blood which is dirty? This is how the blood moves. So this is the flow of blood from the right ventricle to the lungs through the what? The pulmonary what? Artery. From the lungs to the left atrium through the what? Pulmonary vena. This circulation of blood is pumped over a short distance, and it allows a low pressure as a result of the walls of the right ventricle, and they are relatively thin compared to the left what? Ventricle. Okay, so all in all, in summary, what we are trying to explain on this point is that under pulmonary circulation, this is what happened. Deoxygenated blood that is coming from the ventricle, the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava, it goes to the heart through the first chamber that we call the right what? Atrium. From the right atrium, the tricuspid valve there, they open up once the right atrium contracts, and that blood moves into the right ventricle. Then from the right ventricle, when the right ventricle contracts, the deoxygenated blood which is in the ventricle later moves into the pulmonary what? Artery. And that's the reason why you'll be told to say that all arteries carries oxygenated blood apart from what? Pulmonary what? Artery. So it's the one that transports deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle to the lungs for what? Gaseous exchange and purification of blood. When that occurs, then that is the end of pulmonary circulation. So meaning that this is how the dirty blood moves from the body. It goes to the heart, and then from the heart it goes to the lungs for purification. Now, within the lungs, remember, in the lungs we've got cells that we found in the lungs, which we call the air sac, the alveoli. They are the ones that are responsible for what? Gaseous exchange. Where you find to say that we've got capillaries and tissue. You find that there will be high concentration of oxygen in the capillary and low oxygen concentration in the tissue. Hence there will be what? Gaseous what? Exchange. When that gaseous exchange occurs, guess what happens? The carbon dioxide is now excreted out. Remember, the function of the lungs is that it excretes carbon dioxide as a waste what? Product, right? Yes. Then the other part is that once that is done, then this then that will now come, that would be the end of what? Pulmonary circulation. So pulmonary circulation, it ends when this blood has now been purified. Then that is where now systemic circulation begins from. When the blood which was deoxygenated, it has now been purified. What happens is that oxygenated blood, it is now transferred by a vein called what? By the component called pulmonary vein. And that's the reason why they say that not all veins carries deoxygenated blood except pulmonary vein. Yes, the one that is found in the heart. So that vein, it carries deoxygenated blood from the heart, and it carries deoxygenated blood from the lungs, and it takes it back to the heart through the left what? Atrium. When it enters through the left atrium, in between the left atrium and the left ventricle, there is a valve called what? The bicuspid valve. So it moves from the from the left ventricle, from the left atrium to the left ventricle. And then from there, when the ventricle, it is the one which is more muscular than the right ventricle. And the reason why it's more muscular, because it has to pump this blood which has got oxygen in it so that it goes into the aorta, and the aorta distributes the oxygenated blood to the entire part of the body. So that's the reason why when you look at the aorta, we've got the ascending aorta and the descending aorta. The ascending aorta, it's the one that ushers blood to your head, to your upper limbs, and all part of your top part, the head, the neck, the limbs. It is that ascending aorta, which give off how many branches? 3 branches. We've got the common carotid pulse and these other blood vessels that usually that usually carries oxygenated blood. Then from there we've got the descending aorta. The function of the descending aorta, it's the one that takes now deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lower limbs. Which are the lower limbs? Your legs now. Are you getting the point, the difference between systemic and pulmonary?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we make progress now. Okay, so now let's look at the heart rate and the pulse rate. Okay, so the heart rates. What is the heart rate? The term heart rate, it refers to the number of heartbeats per minute. Aye.
Yes.
So the number of heartbeats per minute